If you want your strategic plan to be successful, there are a few key elements that you need to consider. The first is communication. You need to ensure that the rollout plan that you and your team have come up with is communicated to everyone effectively and clearly so that everyone knows what is expected of them. This is vital. The next key element is deadlines. Set your calendar. If dates are not set and placed in your calendar, they won't get done. This forces those involved to organize their tasks by priority so that they are only working on objectives that move you closer to achieving your organizational goals. The third key element is focus planning and implementation. Although the broader plan will be set, individuals need to adjust their own planning within the larger framework. Perhaps plans and accommodations need to be considered and planned for on a more personal level. The fourth key element is reviewing progress, and this needs to happen in two ways: through reflection and reviewing. Now, reflecting is something that needs to happen regularly during an ongoing project, and reviewing happens at the end when the project has been completed or finished. The aim of these reflection meetings is to create a culture of learning, sharing, and constant improvement. The team needs to decide on what is working well, and they need to celebrate that. They also need to work out what is not working so well, and then come up with a plan to fix it. When rolling out a plan, it is trial and error. So it is critical that you all come together to work out the kinks and make micro adjustments to the plan when needed. These meetings are not about making huge changes. So how do you run a successful reflection meeting? Well, these sessions should encourage discussions and idea sharing, but they should ultimately lead to action. When people leave this meeting, they know what they need to do or what they need to change going forward. Try as far as possible to prevent these sessions turning into a venting session where everyone airs their gripes. Reflection sessions should remain blameless, and this is very important. There needs to be a safe space created where people can openly own up to their mistakes without fear of being reprimanded or dragged over the coals. Teams need to focus on using this time to grow. Remember, you set the tone for these meetings, so everyone knows what to expect. You want to make the most of these sessions, and so you need to make sure that everyone knows the agenda for the meeting so that they can prepare ideas and solutions ahead of time. It gives everyone time to collect information and data that they might need to present. And lastly, for these reflective sessions to be meaningful and productive, you must ensure that you have the right person facilitating the discussion, someone who can steer the conversation towards action or an outcome. Now, the review process happens when the project is completed. Firstly, you need to determine if it was a success, and that you need to compare against your performance measures that you decided on during your planning stage. This will help you determine if you were successful or not, or if the school was successful or not. We often learn more from our mistakes, so use this time to think about why some projects didn't work and how it could have been done differently. And then take this new insight to help you guide you through the next strategic planning session. Which leads us to our last key element, make changes. So now we have 5 key elements: communication, deadlines, focus planning and implementation, review progress, and make changes. These elements are very important and must always be considered when you are managing the performance of your team. The strategic planning process is now complete. We started with determining your school's position, and this stage forces you to answer the big question. What is your vision, mission, and values? We looked at how can you analyze the environment that your school functions in order to provide insight and information to help you assist with developing a strategy. Remember that the strategy is bigger than the plan. And here you prioritize your focus areas for your schools and you begin to set long-term goals and short-term objectives. Once you have set your goals, we looked at how you go about building a plan and putting steps in place in order to achieve these goals. And lastly, we looked at managing performance. How to reevaluate and assess whether your school is on track to achieve their goals. And this is the complete strategic planning process. But remember, the review at the end should always provide insight and information for when you begin your next strategic planning process. I'm going to end with this image on the screen. And if I said to you now, what game would you say that these men are playing? Some of you might say the Fool, but hopefully you all guess that these men are playing rugby. Now, when these men run out onto the field, what do you think their goal is? When they run out onto that pitch, what is their number one goal? And it is to win. Their goal is to win every match. How they go about achieving that? Well, there are different ways. They possibly need to score tries, they need to convert some penalties, and ultimately they need to stop the other team from scoring tries. So that is their strategy. The goal is to win the match, and the strategy is what is going to help them achieve their goal. So if I said to you, as an educator, what game are you in? Possibly education, molding and changing lives, developing the youth. The options are endless. And if I say to you again, as an educator, what is your goal? In the game of education, what is your goal? And this is where you start thinking strategically. It could be to have learners leave your school when they are 100% literate. You could be developing other attitudes and values that are in line with your community. And then it brings us back to your strategy. How do you plan on achieving those goals? So strategic planning happens in all different spheres of our lives. It happens in sports and in business and in schools. It is extremely important and a critical element to a successful school.